Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Promo Minds podcast. Today we have a special guest here, Will Gordon. He is incredible. He does so much. We initially connected on the Movember committees probably a decade ago now, and we played softball together. And from that, I learned a heck of a lot about him. He is the Senior Municipal Designer at Trojan Technologies in London, Ontario. He also started up the Thro Entertainment and Sports facility, which they throw events where you can do axe throwing, throw knives, spades, even pizza cutters from what I've seen. And he's always been, like I said, a strong supporter of men's health, and he's got some exciting news on that coming up as well. So let's bring him on to the show. Please welcome Will Gordon.
Hey, Steve.
Will, thanks for joining us today. I'm very happy to connect with you because I've always enjoyed our conversations throughout the years. And so, I've moved away since the London days, but it is good to reconnect. So how have you been?
I'm great. Yes, thank you for having me on your podcast. That's very generous of you to do so. And yes, I always enjoyed our conversations as well, and watching you when you were playing music and when we were hanging out, talking story after some of the ball games and stuff like that. But I'm doing great. Always feel like I don't have enough time in a day, but we'll get there. We'll get to the end at some point.
Absolutely. And that's likely because you have so much on the go. We were just chatting off air, and you were saying like you keep adding things onto your plate because these exciting things come about, and then you're like, oh crap, now I have another thing to do. So, but you're the man for the job. You always find a way.
Well, there's a will, there's a way, right?
Where there's a will, there's a way. I like it. So I want to get right in here, and maybe if you can elaborate a little bit on what is Trojan Technologies, because I share a particular story that maybe we could get to in a bit, but there's a particular story from one of our conversations that I love sharing with people. And whenever I bring it up, they're like, he works for the condom company. Exactly. So I have to do a little explanation there. So maybe you can share what Trojan Technologies is and what your role is there. Maybe you can speak on that.
Sure. Trojan Technologies is the world's leading supplier of using ultraviolet light to disinfect water and wastewater and do other contaminant treatment. So they use science and technology to accomplish this. They essentially use ultraviolet light, a specific germicidal wavelength. Not to get too geeky with the science here, but 254 nanometers is a specific wavelength using UV light that can actually bind the genetic structure of an organism together so it can't reproduce. So if it cannot reproduce, if a human ingests that microorganism, it will not replicate or grow within them. So it doesn't kill them. It basically makes it so they can never reproduce themselves to kind of infect the body. So I've been there for almost 27 years. And right now, as you stated, I'm a Senior Municipal Designer, and I work with engineers around North America, specifically in the US, when they have a water or wastewater treatment plant that they're looking to add disinfection to. Traditionally, it's been chlorination, and we use this physical means using UV light as an alternate means instead of using chemical disinfection.
Wow, that's right off the top there. That has got to be one of the most interesting things I have ever heard. I had no idea that it didn't actually kill it. It just like basically neutered it.
That's really what it does do. And it doesn't take a lot of energy to do that. I mean, we're really just replicating what the sun does naturally. If you put some water in light long enough, it will have enough UV exposure that it can kill the microorganisms, assuming that the water quality is of sufficient nature to be able to let the water pass, or the light to pass through the water. So we're just doing it a lot faster. It takes but a split second to do what we do. So it does a few things. One, it cuts down the footprint for some municipalities to get this disinfection, which is generally required by most states and most municipalities around North America. And it also, by not using chemical disinfection, One, we know there's a lot of health effects associated with chlorine, the consumption of chlorine. While it's a necessary evil, a lot of places still use it, but it also cuts down the risk management for a lot of plants and communities for the citizens that live around plants that keep chlorine gas or they make the chlorine on site. So there's a couple benefits to that. It's pretty interesting work, and every day is a different challenge.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so, how did you originally get started in there? Because you said that you've worked your way up to become the senior municipal designer. So I'm just wondering, like, what kind of your background is to get into that.
Yeah, I took an architectural design and building technology program at a local college, and so I ended up getting hired with engineering firms as basically a draftsman, somebody that could draft up their vision. Working for municipal engineers, maybe specializing in hospitals or something. But the one engineer I ended up connecting with, they did water and wastewater work. Particularly, they had me designing low lift water buildings and stuff like that. So through that, I ended up hearing about Trojan Technologies in London. It was kind of a new company, kind of bursting out. It was just people were talking about this new technologies, and I had a few people approach me about, hey, have you ever applied for work there? And luck would have it that I had an opportunity to apply, and they hired me in as a document specialist, basically like an early project manager, where the salespeople would get a purchase order, and then we would kind of manage all of the documents until it got delivered to site and started up.
Wow, that's really cool. Now, so your background being in like architectural design, I'm assuming maybe you took the architectural technologies program at Fanshawe.
I did.
Yeah. See, I remember one of our conversations now.
It's forever ago now.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that it's been like probably a decade that we've known each other, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But so you get started in the Trojan Technologies, you make your way all the way up to the senior municipal designer there, and now, well, a few years back, you started up Thro Entertainment and Sports,
Yep.
which predominantly was like axe throwing, and I remember you had like little spades, like the shovels that you could throw as well. And I think like talk about how that all came about, because to kind of transition from one spot with the water company over to the axe throwing company, like how did that come about?
Well, this is where another tie comes between us, Steve, all those years back. Is my first experience with axe throwing was at a Movember event with Carrie.
Really?
We did it at a place called Tomahawks. Yeah.
Wow,
So
I
it
don't
was
know
my
that.
very first Movember event, and it was November 2014. And she had organized a fundraiser at a place called Tomahawks. And the day, it was a miserable November day. It was just as bad as you could imagine. It was like blistering snow, hail, just terrible weather. So we had a small turnout, but here's this little club, central East London, and walk in there, and I watch around and looking around and see these other guys that are throwing in there, guys and girls. And we have our Movember event, and if you remember, I had that big silly costume that I was wearing at the time while I was throwing axes, and I had such a blast. And before we left, the owner came over and said, "Hey, would you be interested in starting? We're starting a league in January. Would you be interested in joining?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm very interested in starting." So I started that January throwing hatchets at Tomahawks, and I thought it'd be a good way for my dad and I to connect, and because we hadn't been hanging out much, and I said, "Yeah, why don't you come out and throw some axes in league?" And he said, "Sure, yeah, let's do it." And then the kind of the joke is, in this little community that I live in now with the Axe Worlds, I've never left. I've just stayed axe throwing ever since. And it's just blossomed into into recreation, into a competitive edge where I traveled around competing in tournaments, into morphing into now having my own facility.
That, Okay, well, I did not know that you just started throwing back in 2014. Because
Yeah.
for those who don't know in the audience, Will has taught so many people how to actually throw an axe or throw the hatchets in that. And this guy is like a legend with axe throwing. Like, I don't know how many competitions you've won, but at I think it was Tomahawks, your name was like all over, literally all over the walls and everywhere there. So
Hmm.
kudos to you. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, you have to keep in mind. Yeah, you're right. They do kind of consider me a legend. It's because the sport is still relatively new. I mean, it started back in '06 in Toronto area as urban axe throwing, as it's now known, organized axe throwing. But it really started to blossom around that 2014, 2015, 2016 period, and I just happened to be at the leading edge of it. And there was no one to learn from. There was no YouTube videos. There was no one to kind of show us the path forward. And if you had a bit of a success back then people kind of watched who was kind of leading the pack, who was throwing well, who was doing well against other well-known throwers, and then you get a bit of a reputation, and then you build on it from there. Like either you either can be just a technician where you just goes for bulls and try to get a really high score, or you kind of push yourself into like trick shots or inventing new games and that kind of thing. And so that kind of is where I kind of moved into, was doing a little bit of online teaching of basic axe throwing, what could go right, what can go wrong, and then just helping build that community, which is really the reason why it flourished so well, is because it is a very unique way to build community.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so here you are flourishing in the axe throwing world, and then it leads you into starting your own axe throwing spot. And when you started, you had a partner, and you had
Mhm.
said that now you are the sole owner of Thro. And maybe you can speak a little bit about the timing of when you started and how things went those first few months.
Yeah, yeah, great question. I mean, I was happy where I was and what I was doing in the community that I was existing in. I was working as a manager, an axe throwing coach, essentially at another facility, and my time had kind of run its course. And at the same time, I know you know this, but I got diagnosed with prostate cancer about that same time, around 2018 ish. And so I wanted to take some time off to kind of regroup. And when you get that word presented to you, you have cancer, it really takes you back. So I decided to leave that position. I took a leave from Trojan for a bit and just wanted to focus on my own health and present my diagnosis to my family. So I didn't really say anything to anyone for about a month. I wanted to kind of explore what it meant, what are the options, kind of speak to some experts, take stock of my own health, and make some changes. So I did that. And so I was left with nothing but myself to examine where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And I started going through some life changes personally. And, right near the end of 2018, middle of 2018, no, I guess it would be 2019. The original owner of Tomahawks approached me and said, "Hey, I know you're not with this other location anymore. Do you want to start another location?" He had sold his location to a competitor, now a competitor of mine, and he wanted to do something together. So we started up Thro December 1st, 2019. Um, Going like gangbusters. It was everything we wanted it to be and hoped it would be. And then, March, the word pandemic started to be floated out there. Actually, mid-February, going into March, and I took an early vacation end of February because we knew we were going to be opening up again, or keep getting into a busy season again. And so I wanted a bit of a holiday after opening, the whole sequence of opening. And bam, we're shut down. Um, just like that. And not only were we shut down, but we also, when we opened, we were faced with a cease and desist order from the other location because um, we had a little bit of time left on the clock for our non-compete. So they came at us pretty hard right out of the gate. So we faced that as a hurdle from day one. And then the pandemic, three months later, and we were basically shut down for 2 years.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah, perfect planning, right? That goes into every business plan. Get a cease and desist order right when you open your door, face legal action, then get a pandemic 3 months later.
Yeah, that's I interviewed another guy who he started up a marketing company. I believe it was December of 2019, and though he didn't have the cease and desist, obviously the pandemic came, and his clients were predominantly in the restaurant business.
Oh, wow.
So they were, really affected by it, and so that's how that kind of kibosh. So I guess when you probably knew or had an idea that maybe there might be some kind of legal thing, perhaps, even though, like you said, it was like pretty much the end of your non-compete. So there might have been a little bit of harassment there, but obviously super difficult to predict. Hey, the world's going to shut down in March of 2020, so great idea to start up a business right before that, right? Hey guys, if you're into hiking at all, I highly recommend subscribing to my YouTube page, Steve Leslie Hikes. That's Steve Leslie Hikes on YouTube. I have a lot of content on there from some of the crazy hikes that I've been on, including Angel's Landing in Zion National Park, and it'd be really cool to connect on there, so please check me out. Thanks. So when it came to the hearing about the pandemic, what was sort of the first thoughts that came to your mind as soon as you heard the whole shutdown notion?
Well, I think like a lot of people, the information that we were given is this was going to be a short-term, temporary kind of measure to kind of get ahead of the curve or the spread of the pandemic. I think the number then was like 6 weeks, and then we'll reassess. And we really did kind of have that hope that it would have been a short-term thing so that we could get back into business and kind of pick up where we left off. But being an indoor recreational facility that serves alcohol, we really were at the lowest of the low. I didn't have anything I could sell online. I didn't have a walk-in business that people could come in and buy things from me, or I couldn't have it delivered to your house. I really was relying on that traffic to come into my shop and celebrate events. That's kind of what we do, and do team building and in our leagues. And that was just not a possibility at all as we started stretching out past the 6 week mark. And it did become a feeling of this bleakness, because we had invested so much into getting this going. And, it really was a mental toll on being a business owner with this albatross that was just sitting there racking up debt every month. It's like, I still have to pay rent. I still have insurance. I still have all these responsibilities, Tom and myself. And it really started to weigh heavy on us. And it didn't look good there for a while. I mean, we even talked about selling it right after reopening, giving the opportunity to someone else, because the fatigue was real.
Yeah. As you've been, as this all came about for you, how did you go about pivoting, I guess, in the following months, or was there even something to pivot to, or how did that go for you?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I'm sitting here in the facility now on my own, it was through conversation with, I call him Tom, his name's Matt Thomas, but I switched Matt and Tom back and forth just because when we worked, there were so many Matts, I ended up calling him Tom. So my apologies if people get confused if I say Matt and Tom. But Matt, he was faced with a choice. I mean, for him, this was his day-to-day. This is what he was going to be doing from his 9 to 5, and I was going to come in evenings and weekends. And with the pandemic, that meant he had zero income. And so he had to find alternative incomes to support his family. And with everything being shut down, you can imagine the pressures he must have felt, which were much beyond my own, because I still had that full-time gig that was supporting my lifestyle and my way of life. And so, his wife and his son, he had to go and really make a change for his family, and I respect him for that. So he needed to leave the business, and I thought we were going to leave it together, but there was this little voice inside saying, "You've never had a chance to see it run. You've never had a chance to see it run." I mean, it was like an echo in a hall, like it just never left me, and I just was possessed of trying to see if this business model or this proof of concept was going to work. And I didn't want to leave it. So I did whatever it took to find a way forward on my own. I mean, restarting the business and branding on its own, and taking a vision and building on what was already there. And I'm happy to say that, we went from coming out of the pandemic, I was the only guy. I was doing everything. Every event I was taking on, no matter how big or how small, I had to do it all myself, and then bring on another person, and bring on another person. And we just went through a hiring phase to bring on a few more people. And it's great now that I got a staff somewhere between, they work as needed for most of the part, but it's between 5 and 8 people that we can call on to come in and help out now. So it's a big change from that sense of all loss, everything's going to be lost, to having something that looks like it could be exciting and have a smoother path forward.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it must be like breathing a sigh of relief, coming out of the whole pandemic now, that, as you said, like now you can actually see it thriving, and you can actually see it, operational, which I think is pretty cool. See something come to life.
Yeah, and the reason why I think I had such a passion about moving this forward was not just because it was a business and a responsibility. Sure, that's great. I mean, I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and so it's nice to have that freedom to make something grow under your own vision, with your own vision. But it also is what I loved about the sport, again, just touching back on this idea of community, is that, I'm friends with all my league members. They become friends outside of the shop. They hang around, we're doing street parties. They are having barbecues, and often you'll see a lot of the league members at these private personal events that they're holding for their family and friends. And so I think more than anything else, having a place where we can do that, where everyone is welcome, we don't discriminate, or we don't really put any barriers to who could come in, or create an environment where they feel like they're unwelcome. Everybody's welcome here, and I think that's a testament to, again, using a hatchet or a knife, something very unique to build a greater community.
Yeah, that's really cool. When I guess we were coming out of the pandemic, and you said you were starting to take on, every event that you could, how did you go about finding these gigs, or did they just kind of fall into your lap, or how did that work?
Not necessarily. The early ones were really all contacts or people that I have known. So they're like, we know Will has this thing going on. Let's support him. Let's do a birthday party there. Let's get a couple people and come on in. But even if you had the odd stranger that would call up and say, we're looking for something to do with our cohort. We have 6 people. We want to come in. And they're people you don't know. You have to imagine, like, that person that's throwing the axe right now could be the director of human resources for a big company that might, when this ends, that they would be interested in holding a corporate team event. So he was treating everybody as an opportunity. Every single person that walked in the door, I looked at them as the stepping stone to a bigger event. And really, when I was out, me, I'm a pretty social guy too. So I'm out a lot. I was promoting the brand, talking about the business. I was known as the axe guy. So, having just that interesting story of having the background of being the knife and axe guy or something like that, then it really breaks down barriers for conversation. And they'll ask you, like, what's it like? How did you get started? A lot of what we're doing here now with strangers, and then they remember it. And you get a call, hey, remember me? I'm that guy that you met or gave me your card. And we're going to be doing a group of 10 for our 40th birthday party or something like that. So it really is just being social, getting the word of mouth out through good experience with your customers. And then, I maintain I think a unique Instagram and Facebook. You know me, I'm not shy about doing that kind of stuff. So it may not all be to a corporate standard, but I mean, I do keep it fairly unique.
Yeah, I think as you were talking there, the thing that was coming to my mind was just your uniqueness. That's your personal brand, right? So whenever you're out, people start seeing you as the axe guy. That's how they refer to you as, and that's like, as far as personal branding for your own business. I mean, that's amazing. That's what you want. So
Yep.
it's really cool to hear, like, first off, how you talked about you viewed everyone that came in the door as not just a customer right then and there, but then a potential customer that could bring an event to you. And so what, as important as the experience is at just people coming in, having that extra thought process behind it, I think would take you even further with coming up with the best experience possible.
Yeah, and really, that is a learning that I discovered by just learning about the restaurant trade. Is about the idea of opening a restaurant is everybody should be a repeat customer. Treat them as somebody that you want to come back, right? Whether you offer them a bounce back type of opportunity, or you give them just the best experience ever that they can't wait to come back again. And so the only way this business grows is by experience. Just saying that we do a good job isn't enough. People have to come in and experience it and share it with other people. And that's kind of what our brand is here. And that's why it's hard for me to hire a lane coach, or, I can hire anybody to keep a score. I can't hire somebody that has a personality to be part of a group event, 10, 20, 30, 40 people, and keep the experience going, keep it on time, and really show the guests a good experience in a safe atmosphere at the same time. So there's a lot that goes into this specific type of business, and getting that repeat business from people is job one. That is the absolute number one goal here.
Yeah. I have to ask, how many of your customers have come from nights out at Fitzray's?
Well, there's ex-league members that still hang out at Fitzray's, so I run into them there. But yeah, I'm there quite often. I would say that I get a lot of inquiries from there, but they've come from, if I was to name a few of my favorite local watering holes, from the Mockingbird. I go there for a cocktail. I get people from there, or, London Brewing Co-op, who helped sponsor our shop here a little bit. We use their local beer and services. And so just getting out and again, being social and having those connections can lead you to other people that can lead you to the next gig.
And when you're out socializing, what sort of advice would you give to people who are maybe starting out their business, and like, you have a very confident, you're a very confident person, right? And I can attest that it's very easy to have a conversation with you because you're so relaxed and you always have something interesting to say or to talk about. And so maybe if you could give some advice to someone who might be more of an introvert and they understand that, going out and socializing and meeting new people, not even like just in a networking thing, but actually just living your life day to day and meeting people. What kind of advice could you give to someone maybe to start those conversations or going into those sort of spaces?
Well, confidence is definitely it, but you don't always have the confidence. And I was really, really shy when I was younger. I was such an introvert that when I started my first job at my first engineering firm, I wouldn't even answer the phone. I was afraid to answer the phone. I'd go and ask people questions in person because I didn't have the knowledge. And so this is where I'm going with this, is have the knowledge in the topic that you're interested in sharing. know it inside and out, know everything about it. So that's going to give you the confidence to not be flustered if somebody throws a curveball at you or something like that. Like, there's nothing about axe throwing generally that I'm going to be uncomfortable about talking to. Same as with Trojan. I can jump on a call with just about anyone and be confident that I'm going to help them in some way or another, in a positive way. And if I don't know, just say you don't know. Don't, I hate to say this, don't bullshit it. Like, always be honest and be believable, be trustworthy. And your confidence will come from that. And then once you have that confidence, conversations come easily.
Yeah. Great advice. Now, how did you originally get over your fears there? Because you said that you didn't even want to pick up the phone. So how did you suggested obviously learning as much as you can about something, but then having to, pick up the phone or actually put yourself out there. Like, how did you, what did you do?
Well, I understood, you have to have some self-awareness about your weaknesses. And that was one. I was deathly afraid to like answer the door, which seems weird, but, and pick up the phone and do all those kind of things. So what I did is, while I was still working at that very first engineering job, I actually took Second City improv classes, to kind of get through that fear. I actually even signed up for Amway. So I had to talk in front of people. So I forced myself into positions that took me out of my comfort zone. And that really was the path that worked for me. Because I'm a bit of a unique person, I thought, Second City would be kind of a cool way to do that. And so you learn a little bit of improv. And I still remember my first day there is they had you stand on a stage under a spotlight with people just staring at you in silence for like, I don't know, a couple minutes. And you don't know what they're thinking. I remember sweating bullets, I didn't have to do anything, just stand in a light. And I was petrified. And so it's, you have to start somewhere. So I'm kind of like, start where it's most uncomfortable. And that's the worst it's going to get for you. So it can only be easier from there.
That's amazing. I actually did the same thing, and I don't know if it was Second City or not, but Jim Kelly from FM 96.
Yeah.
So whatever improv thing that he does, it was classes with that same group.
Right.
But
yeah, they had groups around at the time, like the Groundlings were one, and then they had Second City, and I think it's a very valuable tool to kind of go through.
Yeah. The wrestler Chris Jericho, he's known in the wrestling space. He's always been like really good on a microphone, being a talker, right? And he actually, when he left, I think he took a break, let's say 2006 to 2008 or something like that. And when he left, he was trying to reinvent himself, and that was one of the things he did, was he started doing these improv classes. And he was actually on Whose Line Is It Anyway for an episode back then. And that was, just to do something that he had never done before, and it was a whole different level of, performance for him. So that's really cool. I know playing music all those years, like the first few times getting up on a stage, it's like you said, that whole awkward feeling of, holy crap, I am literally in front of, even 3 people, and the nerves are just, it's so nerve-wracking. But then I guess something that you had said, it reminded me of this, was if you put yourself in the worst spot possible, or what you view as the worst spot possible, and then you believe that, it can't get any worse from here, sort of thing. The notion that I used to do, like walking into bars and stuff, if I was completely in my head going, being a learned extrovert, I guess, one of the things that I would do to change my perspective on things was just to say, how can I look like the dumbest person in the room? or what could I do? You know, like if you're so, that's really what it was you didn't want to look weird, or you didn't want to do something and people would, you know, frown upon you or judge you or whatever. And it's like, well, what if that was actually the goal? And then all of a sudden there's no fear because you accomplish your goal, or you're trying to accomplish your goal. I'll put that in quotes, but
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I used to, for now, one of my favorite things to do is make other people uncomfortable in public spaces, and in a kind way. And that might be walking up to that person that is serving you that beautiful cheese cracker in Costco and asking them if they have their first aid and CPR training. Because if I eat that cracker and choke, I need to know that they're going to save my life. And you, you see this look of panic come over their face. You know, they're just there to serve you a cracker. Like, leave me alone.
yeah.
But you know, I still have my insecurities and fears. We all have them. I'm a learned extrovert. You'll never catch me up singing karaoke on a mic. I can tell you that right now. I mean, that is still 100% like a crippling fear for me. And but
Really?
I plan to try that at some point. But right now, I'm not in the headspace to do it yet.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would not have. I would not have guessed that about you.
But I might take your approach is like, how weird can I make this for everybody else? And then, you know, I'm right on task. I'm not failing as Will. I am being a character that's going to make everyone else uncomfortable. So that might be a very unique way to approach it.
Yeah, it's like the Andy Kaufman approach.
Yeah, exactly right. Maybe we'll just coin that as a phrase, the Kaufman approach.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
There was years ago, going into high school, there was a video that I was told to watch, and it was with Bill Murray. Did you ever see the movie Meatballs?
Oh yeah.
So I I was told to watch it's towards the end where Bill Murray does this epic speech to a bunch of kids at summer camp, and they're these kids that, you know, nobody would pick them to win any sort of track and field event because they were going into a track and field event against another camp full of jocks. And Bill Murray just did this beautiful speech. You can find it on YouTube, where he's just basically saying it just doesn't matter. Even if we win or if we lose, it doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't matter.
It's very true. You know, when we get wrapped up in a lot of these thoughts, and I found myself doing that in the axe throwing world for a little bit, and that was like, you know, we were getting to the point where you know, we throw 4 matches a night typically, and a perfect score would be a super perfect would be 81. I mean, a perfect round would be 75, and then you can go for bonus points, which could get you to an 81. You know, and I'd get 3 perfect scores and a 79. I miss one throw out of 45 or 60 throws, and I would be mad at myself like later on, so disappointed, like, why wasn't I perfect? And then I started realizing it just doesn't matter. Like, what am I getting out of this? It doesn't matter. So yeah, it's very, very true. If you And I would suggest that maybe 99 times out of 100, when you're stuck in your own brain, if you ask yourself, does it really matter? Like, is what I'm doing going to impact anybody else in a negative way? Well, then maybe it would matter. But if it's just me, then probably not.
Yeah. To build off that, I heard Darren Hardy, who's an author and a keynote speaker, he once brought up the fact that the biggest deterrent, or the biggest factor in determining whether or not someone was going to go to your funeral was if it was raining that day. so, so something else to keep in mind. Like,
Lot to be said right there.
Yeah, if all these people laugh at me, does it really matter? Because they're not going to come to my funeral anyways. So,
Yeah, that's funny.
now, Will, I do want to get talking about this new project that you have on the horizon, because, like we've talked about already, you and I have connected over the Movember committees, and you know, you were always a big supporter in men's health, and so now you've partnered up with Michelle Goldrick, is that the name?
Yep.
And you two you have this new plan, this project that you're working on for both men's and women's health. And so please share what you have going on with that.
Yeah, I connected with Michelle before COVID, before the pandemic, and it was through Thro. They came in and asked if we would donate something for a table prize for their event called the Pink Dress Society, which was a formal gala where they have a fashion show and fundraiser and live entertainment and all this type of thing. And we said, sure, that'd be great. We love to support the community. And of course, the pandemic came, and so we picked up after everything reopened again. And I've been a big supporter of the Pink Dress Society. And the last event that I went to, they had a conversation about metastatic cancer and how that impacted somebody very important to her. And then that triggered a light in my head, is saying like, hey, I know this guy, Dr. Hahn, and he's been kind of a voice in my ear over the years. And when I'm unsure about what's going on with my own health, I'd reach out to him, and he's been very gracious and very kind about just saying, hey, well, just chill on this for a little bit, or maybe go talk to this doctor, or maybe go do that. And I was thinking, well, he's been doing all this work on metastatic cancer and his research that he shared an electron microscope video of how that actually happens in real time, and he has the science behind him to know how to stop that from happening. And now it's like, what mechanism do you give to the human body to stop that from actually taking place? And so you might still get cancer, you treat it, but then it wouldn't spread through your body for the rest of your life. And then so I think, hey, geez, we should connect Dr. Hahn with Michelle and her connections through her medical, because she's a breast cancer survivor and health fitness guru, and has her own business called Boss Fitness. And so we started chatting, and then she's like, yeah, this sounds really interesting. I know I'm kind of focused on the women's health, but it sounds like it could be a good opportunity to kind of get these synergies together of her connections in the women's health arena and my connections through the Movember men's health arena. And then so Dr. Hahn, I talked to him, he's like, yeah, I'd love to show my work. I'm always interested in showing my work to new people. And then I remember Dr. Martin Heisel, who came in, because I was doing these little in-person town halls back during the Movember days. I'd bring speakers into Trojan at the time and have these lunch and learns so they could learn about what they are working on. And Dr. Martin says, yeah, I got another grant from Movember recently. I'm still looking at men's mental health, specifically that age category that you can see here that I have with gray on the top and gray on the bottom, and men's suicide and that kind of thing, and how to get men connected into community to lower suicide rates and or help with their mental health. And so then this just kind of spawned into maybe something that we could do on a bigger scale. So, a couple doctors on this side for men, a couple speakers for women, and then maybe have somebody like myself or maybe Michelle talk about their own personal experience, kind of navigating that world from when you get the whole idea of, hey, you have cancer, and what do you do from there? So it's in the really early days yet. I've got kind of handshake agreements from my side, and connecting with Michelle has been a bit of a struggle with everything going on, but we are definitely interested in exploring this town hall virtual type of thing where we can bring people from all over, not just have something that's local in London for people like in a physical space to hear these words.
That's amazing. I love that. I love the notion that with all the connections that you two have made, how when an idea got triggered, you start coming together with your resources and your networks, and I think that's an incredible thing. And you and I were talking a little bit before we started this podcast, and how there was another guy. He's got the Canadian podcast, and also he started Mentel Health, and I definitely got to connect you two because when you were talking about the conversations and the community to prevent suicide, that is what the notion of mentel.ca is. And it spawned off of the Bell Let's Talk Day and he thought, well, why don't we actually have a conversation? Because where's the conversation with that? And so he reached out to all these people in his network, saying, like, can you share a message of something that has helped you during your times of depression or when you're feeling down? What have you done to move past that? And then it was just kind of this movement that was spawned from that. So I think connecting you two would be really beneficial.
Yeah, I would like that. And these conversations, they have a lot of impact. Like through my association with Dr. Hahn, and just understanding a little bit of his research has really empowered me to make what would be considered maybe by some radical decisions about my own prostate cancer. Watching it when you first get something called the Gleason's Index, and you start off at a certain scale. I believe it's a 6 is your entry into the world of prostate cancer, and then go to 7, and it's exponentially worse every number it goes up. And then you go for biopsies and blood tests, and understanding that there's a future way of doing all this. There's a blood test that is on the horizon will not only tell you that you have cancer, but it'll tell you what type of cancer that you have, and then that might be able to lead you away from doing biopsies, which are very invasive. And I got to be honest with you, I go for them pretty regularly, and I don't like it, but I do it because it's important. It's an important step in my well-being to not get surgery. I've decided not to get surgery, but I also do something called, not that I'm recommending this for anyone else, this is just my path forward, but I feel comfortable in this space because of the knowledge that I have, really understanding, about this specific type of cancer. And when people ask me, I'm comfortable sharing my story with them because, I'm doing something different. And I don't say it's the right path for everyone because everyone is different. But for me, being, what am I now, 6-7 years in, still not getting the surgery, but still actively getting monitored and biopsies and blood tests on a very regular basis. That for some people is just crazy. Like, why would you do that? Why don't you just get rid of it? But, there's a lot of negative impacts when you decide to go under the knife or you decide to get chemotherapy. So again, it's just having the knowledge that there's other opportunities and other alternatives out there under the best type of medical supervision. I'm not saying that any of this is not under doctor's care. Every bit of it is under doctor's care. And then again, these conversations need to be had between men, between women and men. And we often find that people do this in secrecy. They're almost ashamed that they are diagnosed with something, or coming out of the pandemic, the mental health, again, a pandemic in of itself. And again, as you get older as a man, losing a sense of purpose, maybe you lose your job, or your marriage breaks up, or something happens to you, which is a stepping stone into depression, which how do you get out of that? There are definite techniques, and no one should be afraid to ask for help. And so having as many voices out there in the world that people can turn to and feel comfortable turning to, it's never a bad thing.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on all of that. What it reminded me of is, so my fiance, Clarissa, she's a hypnotist or a hypnotherapist. And that's kind of the clinical term, we'll say. But what she does is a lot more intricate. However, she has said that the amount of antidepressants that she sees people on at the start of the journey, and how working through some of those past traumas or whatever they need to do, how a person can go from being on like 4 or 5 antidepressant pills, and by the end of it, through doctors' supervision and stuff, they're like off of them. She has allowed me to see that there are different directions, and like you said, everyone's different, right? You got to figure out what's best for you.
Yeah.
Like chemotherapy is typically what people go to. Getting surgery is typically what people go to. But we live in a day and age where there's different avenues that you can take, which I think is incredible. And so I'm just saying, like, Yeah.
I agree. I agree 100%. And I think the more that knowledge is out there, more people will feel empowered to explore other options and not be afraid. Fear often is a big motivator, and I think education helps combat fear. And so once you have the knowledge, then fear subsides, and then you can think with a clear head. It's like anything, as long as you can stay clear in your mind, stay calm, you're generally going to be better off to make the smarter decision for your own well-being.
Absolutely. I want to ask you this because you had said that you were diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2018, but you were also involved with the Movember committee in previous years. So,
Yep.
how did you initially get involved with the Movember committee, or how did that
No, I don't
interest
know.
come about?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just one of these moments in life that serendipity led me down the path. But I mean, I was interested in the Movember movement just because of the cheesy mustache and how that would just annoy my entire family to have this awful mustache. And so it kind of moved into Canada for the first time. And my cousin, he started a team. I jumped on board with that one, and then the next year I kind of took a lead and started my own team. I think it was called Man versus Mo back then, and then and then just Love Your Mo. We did that for a lot of years, and then again, I'm a believer if you talk the talk, you need to walk the walk. And so becoming a face of a team and asking men to kind of join in on your program to raise money for men's health, often their first response would be like, "Oh, are you getting your health checks done? Are you getting this done? You keep saying that I should go get checked, or it's important to go get checked, but are you doing it?" And I was like, "Well, they're right. I better go get all these checks done so that I can be informed." I went and got at an early age. I started like I guess 40. Started getting prostate checks regularly, getting my blood checked, and through that, they started noticing an elevation in the PSA test, and then it doubled, and then it doubled again. And it was like, okay, we got to do something here. Your blood work is not normal. And then I went for a biopsy, and it came back positive. So because of my involvement in Movember, helped me to a very early on diagnosis because I was a believer in the message.
Wow. You know, Bret Hart, another wrestler. I'm bringing up wrestler. I don't know why I'm speaking so
That's
much
I
about
know
this.
I know who they all are, so that's a testament.
So Bret Hart, he's been an advocate for Movember for years, and he has, well, unfortunately, his family has the perfect example of why you should go early rather than wait. And I believe there was five. He had 4 or 5 brothers. One of them obviously tragically passed away in a wrestling accident. But 2 of the brothers, actually, it might have been him and another brother. One of them got checked when they were, I don't know, before 60, they caught it. Or no, they got checked when they were in stage 1. That was it. And then the other one waited. And then by the time he actually went in to get checked, he was already at stage 4. But
Yeah.
Bret Hart had been hammering on him to go get checked, and he just delayed it. And they say, had he gotten checked when they initially found out about the stage 1 cancer with one of the other brothers, the likelihood of him being able to be treated, assuming that it wasn't stage 4 already, even stage 1 or 2, he would have had so many more options. But because he waited, it was like almost too late at that point.
That's exactly what it is, and that's why I have options because I'm at the early. As a matter of fact, through some of the choices I made through the other biopsies, it's even shown that that I'm maybe even took a step back from. I'm still have cancer, of course, but they don't see as many cancer cells in the readings, and that's just because there is still a bit of chance with it all, right? There's still a little bit of every test. There's always a percentage of interpretation into that, and so the longer you wait, like my cousin had the same thing. He waited or never got checked until he got diagnosed, and then it was like full on emergency, turned into bladder cancer as well. So I mean, early is the secret to all of this. It's 100% treatable if you get checked early.
Yeah, well, that's amazing that you, because of being involved with Movember, you went and got checked, and you got it under control, right? Like you're being monitored and you're aware of it. You're actively working to combat it, we'll say.
Yeah, I'm not just putting my head in the sand and saying I know I have it and I'm forgetting about it. No, this is a journey. Like this is I'll go again in January. I just did one in October. I was there. I'll do a physical biopsy every 2 years. I go for blood tests every 3 to 6 months, depending on the readings, right? So it's not a choice for everyone. Some people like to just, hey, let's just do one option and we carry on with life. And so for me, this is a pretty regular reminder of just being aware and being a little more health conscious. And not that I know that any of it helps, but it's what I need to do to make sure that if anything changes, I make the next step in the right direction.
Yeah, you're doing everything that you can in your power.
Exactly.
What sort of message would you say to someone who maybe just found out that maybe just got diagnosed with, or maybe they're in their own sort of journey with all this? What kind of message would you have for them?
Well, one, listen to your doctor for sure. Listen to your health professionals. They know, they see it day in and day out. They're the expert. YouTube is not the expert. Googling stuff, they're not the experts. Usually if you're with a urologist, these are very experienced people that know what they're talking about and what they see. So it really depends on what level of diagnosis you come up with. If you are at stage 1, well, then you have options. If you're at a stage 4, pretty much do whatever they say immediately, because you're in danger. Your health is in danger. So first question I always get is like, well, where are you at? What did they tell you? What was your Gleason's index scale reading? And then that's basically your stages, essentially 1, 2, 3, or 4. And then don't be frightened. Stay within your own head. Learn about this. Explain it. Have conversations with your family. When I told my daughter, she cried immediately. She thought like, oh, he's cancer. My dad's going to die. And that wasn't the case. So be educated. Have the knowledge so that your family feels comfort around you. They're not frightened for you. That's the last thing you want to do is scare other people in your family. So for me, knowledge was key. Secondly, was following all the doctor's advice. And third was looking at my options. And that was kind of the 3 main components to feeling comfortable moving forward with the decision that I made.
Right on. And of course, there are a plethora of resources out there. But hey, why not just add Will and connect with him?
Like I said, I don't claim to have all the answers, and I never will. I just know what I did to help give myself some ease and comfort with the diagnosis and how I was going to present that messaging to my family. So, when I sat down and had the conversation with everyone, I had pamphlets, I had information, I had my options, so that whatever question I thought they could ask me, I was prepared for it.
Right on. So, Will, I have one more question for you, and this is it's not specific to any genre, but I was wondering if you had any book recommendations or podcasts, anywhere that the viewers could go to find either something interesting to read or listen to, or whatever your preference is. But I usually ask, 1 to 3 book recommendations, and it doesn't have to be genre specific or anything. What would you say?
Well, I'm not a voracious reader by any means. I read so many technical documents during the day that reading in evenings and weekends is generally not my thing. But I would say that when I get a chance to actually have some sustained time, like if I go on vacation, I generally will take a book with me and with the intent of reading it entirely during that time. And the last one that I did that on was a book called No Angel. Jay Dobbins, I think, is the author. He was a undercover detective in the U.S. that basically almost lost his entire identity trying to get infiltrate the Hells Angels, and his journey of doing that. It was a pretty powerful book, very interesting read. I read it cover to cover over 3 days in Cuba. And so that one was great. The book that I currently have on queue, I'm going to Mexico in January, and that's Stranger in the Lifeboat. And I'm not a big believer in a lot of religious themed books, but this is the whole idea of belief, the idea of just having belief in something, whether it is a stranger in the lifeboat after a ship explodes and you have 10 people in a lifeboat and one of them claims to be the Lord. And like, how do you know they're not the Lord, right? Is it only true if you believe it? Is it, some stories sound so hard to believe that you almost just have to have the blind faith to believe it was true or is true. So this book looks like it could be interesting. I know it's a bestseller. It's been out for quite some time, but it just caught my eye a few months back, and I purchased it, and I have it sitting on my shelf ready to go.
Right.
And I was going to say, just once in a while, when the odd time I'll write a little bit of poetry for myself, and I'll just refer to a book, 20th century book of poems. Just I'll pull a poem out and just read it once in a while. So really, toilet reading, I guess you'd call that. Read a poem, and carry on.
Do you have a favorite poem?
No, I mean, I wrote my favorite poem right now is one that I reminisced on when I split up from my wife, and so I try to be a little bit more creative with my own writing now, and that really was about, here was somebody who, I won't read the poem, but I'll give you the gist of it. Somebody that, was never kind with their heart. He was somebody that would never, here he had somebody in his life that was always giving them love. And I called it like it was a gift. There was this wrapped gift that was always being presented. And he never took that gift. And he never cherished it the way he should have. And then when the relationship broke up, he noticed that she was giving this gift to somebody else. And he was like, well, wait a minute, maybe I want that gift back. But it was too late. It was already given to someone else. So that was the essence of the poem in my marriage when it broke up. It was like, well, I'm equally responsible for the health of that relationship, and maybe I didn't do as good a job as I should have at the time.
Wow. Deep stuff, man. You're going to have a, what do they call it, the coffee shop or whatever, where they have it's not a speakeasy, where they have like the poetry readings and stuff like that. There's your excuse to get out of the karaokeing, do your own poems.
Yeah, that's definitely something on the radar, is to do like a spoken word night here at Thro.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Well, Will, I really appreciate your time here, and thank you so much for coming on here, sharing everything that you're up to, and including, the early stages of this new project. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes to life. So definitely keep me posted on that. But
I will.
Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, and we will definitely talk soon.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it very much.
So there you have it. Will Gordon of Thro Entertainment and Sports out of London, Ontario. What a cool conversation. I've always enjoyed our conversations that we've had. He's a super fascinating guy, and like you said, he's got like a confident, relaxed demeanor, so he's very approachable. You can usually find him at Fitzroy's. That's usually where these conversations took place, but he does love live music. So once again, thanks to Will for coming on. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Promo Minds podcast. And until next time, take care. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Promo Minds Podcast. I'm Steve Leslie, and if you want help crafting your message or sharing your story, feel free to reach out. I'd love to help. Love coming up with ideas, and we can have a nice chat. So reach out to promominds@gmail.com and I'll respond. Take care.